Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Monday, August 17th, 2020. And our top stories today: information technology hiring takes a hit during the pandemic, and the future of data and data mining. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Bill Cameron of Triketra Infotech. Bill, thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thanks, Jeff. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to talk with you. And what I wanted to do in this first segment, and let's talk about the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on not only your business, but technology in general. Because many of us, look, we're connecting through Zoom, so many of us are using a lot of technology and work from home. But how has the technology industry been impacted?
Great question, Jeff. Like every other aspect of life, I would say that the pandemic's been utterly transformative in terms of the business cycle and in terms of the role of technology. I'll make a couple observations. One is what I'm currently doing is at a U.S. bank where I'm working on a compliance deliverable. So that sort of is an imperative that doesn't go away or doesn't get altered meaningfully by the pandemic. The big theme of the last 20 years, Jeff, as you and I have witnessed, is digital transformation, taking business processes that are manual or very human-based and putting them into a digital arena. And that imperative sort of hit its peak, all-time peak, by virtue of this, right? Even if you and I were in the same room, we would be cautioned against meeting. So, of course, we're in this sort of format. So at a macro level, I'd say the pandemic is utterly transformative to all businesses, but certainly by driving digital transformation as never before.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Just from what I'm seeing from the outside looking in, many businesses going remote. There are a lot of technology workers that work on a consulting basis. And I think you're one of those, that you run a company that you do that. You're an outside consultant after having a long, distinguished technology career. Is there more opportunity for so-called consultants or gig workers in this environment?
Yeah, it seems so. The shift toward, gig economy is an interesting term. When I first heard it, I thought it had to do with sort of technology in the sense of storage or throughput, but it really means a gig in the sense of a temporary, or let's say shorter time horizon employment event. And that certainly is a theme I'm seeing a lot more of, all the way from Uber drivers to people that are doing what I do, which is sort of a time-bound delivery based on what we could call a gig, right? I think at my level and the nature of what I do, I wouldn't use that terminology, but it's exactly what I do in reality. So it's growing. I think it's only going to grow. I think the nature of what benefits mean in such an equation is kind of interesting, because as a society, it puts more of the onus back on the individual, especially for things like medical insurance. But yeah, gig work is growing rapidly and certainly defines where my career has ended up, 20, 25 years in.
And you do a lot of, and I want to talk about a lot of kind of the evolving technologies, but data is a big part of what you have done career-wise and what you are doing now. And you mentioned compliance. But how has data, just in these last 4 months, the importance of data and mining data, how has that changed in your mind in working with some of your clients?
I think the buzzword they use, Jeff, as you and I have heard quite a bit, is that data is the new oil, which is to say it's sort of a foundational thing on which many other parts of the economy will move. So I'd say there's a couple different themes. One of them is as data keeps emerging as a theme where businesses can extract insights from data. That's all they really want to do is extract business insights from data, be it ways to produce more revenue or ways to avoid risk. That's the main foundational premise behind the growth of data. There are related concerns that link to the growth of data. One of them is privacy, of course, right? I think we all are well aware that when we seem to look at something in one web page or sort of go down a particular rabbit hole on the internet, it seems like we are getting cross-sell such things later. That's very intentional, and that's a great example of how data is leveraged in the digital space. Amazon, other companies are all about that. There's essentially sort of two platforms for data that are in the marketplace now. One is structured data, one is unstructured. For structured, you would say Teradata would be a platform of choice. For unstructured, it might be Hadoop. So those imperatives where the business is either looking to avoid risk or grow revenue and using data to do it while acknowledging privacy and then asking the question of, do we use structured or unstructured data? Those are kind of all the ingredients that I see emerging. And what's interesting is, Jeff, I haven't seen data used in quite the same way as it has been in the last 5 years. So like the pandemic bringing things to a certain peak or fever pitch, the importance and use of data is also at an all-time high. It will only continue to grow.
So does this involve artificial intelligence, machine learning? I mean, from a lot of us hear those words, the first thing that I think about, if you ever watched The Terminator, I think of Cyberdyne systems and I think about, machines dominating, but it really isn't like that because we're just at the forefront of this technology. But are you seeing more and more implementation of AI and machine learning just working with some of your clients?
Yeah, I love the question. Embedded in it, you brought up Terminator, so we have to wonder if Skynet is coming, right? But
yeah, sorry.
It's great it's a great thought experiment. Here's what I would say. For those a little farther away from technology, there's a mystique to it because there's a lack of understanding. And so AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning are a big theme in the cultural zeitgeist, right? You've got people that are worrying that machines will take over and jobs will go away. And while all of that is true, I think technology tends to have a bit of a hype cycle in the larger culture. So I'll give you an example of where I am seeing artificial intelligence and machine learning used. So a good portion of my background, let me back up. I see technology as kind of existing in three spheres at any given time. One is innovation, right? Where you're, as people have become fond of saying, in an ideation mode, right? You're brainstorming, you're thinking about where you want to go next. That's sort of sphere one. Sphere two is delivery, where you're building something, you're executing, you're refining requirements. And sphere three is it's up and running, it's live, and it's in operational mode, operations, if you will, ops, we say in tech. I'm more of an ops guy, historically. And when I worked at another large US bank, my team and I had a sort of a 24/7 pager rotation where we got in and troubleshot issues in an operational sense. We would bounce servers, route traffic, take care of anomalies, basically keep the customer whole, keep the systems up. Now, more and more of that is being done by artificial intelligence. So recognizing anomalies, moving customer traffic, bouncing servers, these things are actually done by non-sentient minds. A mere 15 years after many of us were paid as humans to do that. So that's a great example. Operations is getting really rewritten and changed by AI ML. As far as a true AI in the sense of what is consciousness and what is the nature of understanding and what really is learning, I think we're subject to a lot of debates. And I do think there's a bit of hype cycle that needs to be avoided. But at the same time, it's a real phenomenon. I've often said that I think we're about 3 or 4 presidential election cycles away where someone will run on a platform of maintaining humans as an employable thing. So I do think, we're probably a couple decades out from the point where humans still doing work will be a big cultural theme, even political, and so forth.
Yeah. Well, Bill, I want to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Bill and where he sees kind of the future of technology, data, et cetera. FinTech will kind of lump in there as well. So you're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
If you are like 58% of Americans, you didn't go to college. Or you did, but never finished. Maybe it's the thought of a big, intimidating campus. At Independence University, all classes are held online. Maybe it's the thought of being alone in a sea of students. At Independence U, you'll get a personal support team to help you every step of the way. Maybe it's the cost of all those books and supplies. Online means no books to buy. We even give you a new laptop and tablet to keep when you graduate. Maybe your life doesn't fit typical college classes. At Independence U, our online college fits your schedule. Let's meet a few students.
Independence University held my hand through the process.
Don't be afraid to take the leap because it has changed my life drastically.
Just take the first step and you can do it. If I did it, you can do it too.
At IU, there's no barriers to your degree.
800-535-9916.
Welcome back. We're talking to Bill Cameron of Triketra Infotech. Bill, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Pleasure, Jeff.
Yeah, so we had a great conversation, and we kind of started the conversation of where things are going, and you were really laid it out with artificial intelligence and data. Let's take a look at maybe, you mentioned 4 presidential cycles, but let's look out further. And where do you see technology going in terms of data mining, artificial intelligence, fintech? I want to lump it all together, but I want you to break it down.
Sure. So fintech, I think, is in a grammatical sense called a portmanteau, right? It's a joining of 2 words. So financial technology, fintech, is an amazing thing. So I use cash a lot less. I transfer to my children money wherever they are in different places in the U.S. through Venmo without a second thought. So this question of what was physical at one point, based on precious metals, then fiat currency, and now fiat currency in digital format, that in, I'd say, 20 years has been an utter rewrite. And I think that growth curve is only going to increase. I think there will be a time in which physical cash will be an anomaly, sort of a noteworthy event for someone to spend something by handing a bill or a coin to somebody. The linkage into data is unmistakable. I'll give an example of Google, right? We all know Google as a company, a great success story. Or is it a digital company? We used to think of it as a single form field where you would enter something and search on it, but it's become so much more. Because it knows a lot about you and it can do predictive work, understanding, kind of what you're thinking, what you might be needing. As you kind of connect these things, there's a phenomenon, Jeff, called open banking, where there's a movement so that banks have APIs, application program interfaces, that are public facing, that allow external entities to come in and evaluate people's financial data and look at it. Obviously, a lot of privacy concerns there as well and questions of the value proposition. But I would say one of the most noteworthy things in fintech is this question of open banking and allowing financial institutions to expose data with customer permission out to the marketplace so that better business decisions can be made for customers. That's pretty new, I think it's not in the public consciousness yet, but it's
Yeah.
getting there. And I think that's one of the big trends we would watch that kind of takes digital and data and links them in meaningful ways.
What about some of the ethical? I mean, do you see any ethical concerns? I mean, how do you, if you're running a company, you're doing this, how do you balance privacy, ethics with profitability? Because they don't have to be a competition with one another, but there definitely are things that you have a responsibility to your customer or to the general public, I would think. How do you balance those things?
I can answer in a unified way as an individual and my company. I am perhaps more than most a big skeptic about this question of privacy in the sense of I sort of think that the little guy and his or her privacy is sort of the paramount imperative, not the profitability of the company. So I do think that things like the GDPR rules instituted in the European Union are, as an American, you have a knee-jerk impulse to say, well, that's heavy bureaucracy. We're not quite like the Europeans, et cetera. But I do applaud them for at least broaching the question of where are the imperatives around corporate profitability and personal privacy? Where are they supposed to meet? What is that balance supposed to look like? I would say in the US right now, we're slightly erring on the side of permitting companies to do things that, sure, they're embedded in a EULA that we all read and scroll, but honestly, I don't think we're reading them, myself included. And as such, I think there's a huge ethical question around what is in a personal sphere that's sort of sacrosanct and not to be touched versus fair game out in the marketplace. So it's a big question. On a personal level, I'm very, surprisingly to some, reduced user of technology. I think it has its place. I don't have Wi-Fi in my home. I don't have television for that matter. I don't use Google as a browser. I run a VPN on all my mobile devices. Not that I have anything to hide, but more like I really want to make sure that I'm using technology in a way that maximizes my efficiency and good things in my life. And I'm a bit of an advocate of people doing that more broadly in society. So great questions, a lot to dig into there.
Do you think that other people, I would suspect that there are many people that feel the way you do. Do you think that, we talked about this progression to using technology, so data mining, what that can be used for, artificial intelligence and machine learning. But and now everyone walks around with their phones. I mean, you see people's heads down walking across the street, very dangerous, want to not do that, or even sometimes driving with devices. Do you see almost like a regression where people just say, look, I'm going to push the device aside. I'm going to do the things that you suggest that you are doing for yourself and your family, which is using VPN, not connecting myself. Do you think we kind of go back a little bit in the next few years, even though that there's a push for all this technology-laden innovation?
Yeah, one can only hope. I do think that there is a growing, even among young people actually, there's a growing acknowledgement that perhaps an hour a day completely off of all screens is a great way to, put simply, bolster mental health. I do think that if you look at human cognition, I don't think we're meant to take in as much information as we do. And a lot of it's alarming as well, especially right now. So just by virtue of volume and the nature of it, I think people are saying, I'm out. I'm going to take some time off. I'm going to take a month off Instagram. I'll give a great example, Jeff. There's kind of a political pundit, public figure named Dave Rubin. And, he's part of what they call the intellectual dark web, et cetera. And he's someone with whom I've got some familiarity. He takes the full month of August off all technology. Doesn't watch any television, doesn't listen to anything, doesn't pull up an internet browser at all. He comes back and he speaks in really glowing terms about what that did for his relationship with his husband, what it did for his mental health, et cetera. That's a visible and strong example of someone backing away. But I think at a basic level, people are waking up to that fact. And as such, hopefully there'll be a lot more of that, a lot of time off screens and more indirect human interaction. It's just better for us.
Yeah, I think just physically, mentally, I think that, and spiritually, probably it does a lot of good.
Right.
Bill, I'm going to have to leave it there. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for joining us on the program, and we look forward to having you back again very soon.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. have a topic of interest or someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and more, check out our newsletter, The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.